Starting Monday, you'll report to Greg. He's your new supervisor. She said it like she was handing me a napkin. Not a warning. Not a question. A declaration, between bites of roast chicken. Greg. I looked across the table and there he was, legs crossed, wine glass halfway to his lips, grinning like the damn cat who finally caught the mouse. We'll make a great team, he said, that smug little half-chuckle curling out of him like steam off garbage. This man had once asked me if Excel was that green thing with numbers. And now, suddenly, I was reporting to him. She didn't blink. Just kept chewing like nothing seismic had shifted under the table. Apologize to him, she said, reaching for the salt. Or pack your things. Not please. Not, let's talk about this. Just that. An ultimatum in front of the guy who once invited her to a hotel conference and came back with a shared room receipt. I stared at her for a full 10 seconds, fork in hand, not moving. Not a twitch. Not a breath. Then I nodded once. Calm. No drama. Okay. The way she relaxed back into her chair, you'd think she just won a chess game. But here's what she missed. That little flick of the eye I gave the far wall. The blink that lingered a second longer than it should have. The fact I didn't finish my food, when I always finish my food. She didn't notice I never took off my jacket after walking in. Or that my laptop bag, usually parked beside the foyer, was already missing. If you've been enjoying these, consider subscribing. It helps more than you think. And let's be honest, most folks listen without ever clicking the button. One tap makes a difference. Anyway, she got up to put the dishes in the sink like she hadn't just sucker-punched our marriage. I leaned back, eyes on the flickering TV in the corner, sports highlights I wasn't watching. My mind was already gone. I wasn't angry. That was the strange part. I thought I'd be, but I felt nothing sharp. Just a smooth, cold line of thought forming in my head. She passed behind me and grazed my shoulder with hers. Probably intentional. Probably to assert something. Greg's been supportive. She added with this fake soft tone she uses when she's pretending not to gloat. You've been distant lately. I looked up at her. You think Greg's the solution to that? She gave a half shrug. He listens. He respects me. And he doesn't act like everyone's beneath him. Oh, that tone. The therapist-filtered one. The one where she pretends her backstabbing is an act of self-love. Very healing. Very 2025. I smiled. A little. Enough to unsettle her. Well then, I said. Good luck with that. She blinked. Just a flicker. Confused for half a second. Then scoffed and walked upstairs. I waited 10 minutes. Checked the time on the oven clock. Then got up, walked to the hook where my keycard usually hung, and noticed she hadn't even noticed it missing, because it had been gone since Friday. By the time she turned off the bedroom light upstairs, I was already backing the car out of the driveway. The night swallowed me whole. No headlights. No music. Just the quiet click of the turn signal and the folder on the passenger seat. Thick, black, sealed with a wax sticker she'd never noticed in the file drawer next to the old tax records. Tomorrow, she'd smile. She'd smirk. And she'd have no idea that tonight, right now, I had already left her. Not with shouting. Not with slamming doors. Just one small nod at the dinner table, followed by the sound of her own silence. The parking garage was half-lit, humming with that flickering, dead bulb electricity you only notice when you're alone. I backed into the far corner like I always do, not because I had to, but because I like exits. I like knowing exactly how to leave a place. That night was no different. Only this time, I wasn't leaving just the garage. I was peeling out of something much thicker. I walked past the motionless reception desk, badge in hand. Even though I knew the reader had already been disabled from 10 p.m. onward. Didn't matter. Mine still worked. For now, the office was dark. Not ominous. Just quiet. The kind of silence that feels like a held breath. I didn't turn on lights. I didn't need to. I knew the hallways by muscle memory. Every squeaky tile and loose wall panel. Every corner where the motion sensors lagged for half a second before catching up. My office was the same as I left it Friday. Pen holder slightly off-center. Old post still stuck to the monitor with a joke she wrote 6 months ago. Don't forget, you're the boring one. Funny how that was supposed to be affectionate. I peeled it off with 2 fingers and dropped it into the shredder. Felt ceremonial. First, the drawers. Top one had the lease for the company car. Gone. My wedding band. Yes, the original one, not the resized replacement she insisted on after her juice cleanse phase, was taped under the divider in the back. Left that in the middle of the desk. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Then the electronics. Laptop. Wiped clean. Factory reset. External hard drive. Nothing damning on it. Just decades of work she'd never asked about. Disconnected, dropped into my shoulder bag. Company phone. Reset, turned off, and placed neatly in the charging cradle, still warm from my last call with a supplier in Singapore. I took one last look at the books on the shelf, ones she never read, the ones I used to mark up late at night while she texted Greg from across the bed, and pulled down just one. A legal code book. Not for flair. For the document hidden in the dust jacket. Tucked neatly inside, a red folder. The real reason I came. I locked my door behind me and walked down one floor. Legal. 3 glass-walled offices. One light on. Samantha. Always there too late. Always with a mug that says, I object. She looked up, surprised, then slowly smiled. I figured it was coming. I need 10 minutes, I said. She nodded, closed her laptop. No small talk. We weren't friends, never grabbed drinks, never shared gym playlists. But she respected me, more than I could say for certain people in my own kitchen. I slid the red folder onto her desk. She didn't touch it right away, just glanced up. This is dated 4 months ago. Backdated clause. Valid per the amendment your team approved in February. You're triggering it? I tapped the signature line. I signed it last week. She opened it slowly. Reviewed each page. Section 14B. Subclause A3. The one she thought would only be useful in retirement scenarios. The one I built into my exit plan when things started shifting. When Greg stopped being a joke and started getting away with everything. She reached the last page and froze. You're naming a successor trustee? She asked. I nodded. Her eyebrows lifted. Her father? I nodded again. She never removed him. Never updated the paperwork when we merged assets. She looked me dead in the eye. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I've been sure for 6 months. She sighed. Then I'll file the notice in the morning. I won't be here. Thought not. There was a moment there, just a second, where even she looked like she wanted to say something more. But instead, she slid the folder into a locked drawer, pushed back her chair, and stood. One question, she said, adjusting her glasses. What made you finally pull the trigger? I smiled. She told me to apologize to Greg. That got a quiet laugh out of her. A real one. Fair. I walked out without another word. The elevator ride back up felt longer than usual, like it knew something had ended. The moment the doors opened, I dropped my ID badge into the metal waste bin by the janitor's closet. It hit the bottom with a soft clink. It was done. She floated into the kitchen Monday morning like it was her birthday. Hair curled, blouse ironed crisp, her favorite lipstick applied with surgical precision, the shade she called boardroom blood. She even hummed, which she hadn't done since her last Instagram reel hit 10,000 views. I wasn't there, of course. I never planned to be. But that didn't stop her from performing like I was watching. She slid her mug beneath the espresso machine, hit the double shot, and smiled to herself like a woman who'd just won a bet. She even pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of her coffee beside her planner, probably captioning it with something like "Fresh Start Briefcase Sparkles #Executive Life" for her tiny, desperate audience of girlboss wannabes. Then she leaned against the counter and said aloud to no one, heard Greg's excited to lead. Like it was a line from a sitcom, and she was delivering the punchline. And that's when she saw it. Just to the right of the espresso machine, on the marble that she insisted we import from Tuscany, a small, square object sat neatly. Glossy plastic. Worn edges. Her eyes took a second to register it. My keycard. Beside it, a folded slip of white paper. Hotel notepad stock. The kind I always carried in my bag, but never used unless I really wanted someone to read it. Scrawled in my sharp block handwriting, just 7 words. Tell your lawyer I'm done. M. She stared at it. Blinked once. Twice. Then laughed. Actually laughed out loud, like it was a bad breakup text from a sulking teenager. Melodramatic, she muttered, lifting the card and examining it like it might be fake. She flipped it over. My ID photo stared back at her. She placed it back down, slower this time. She pulled out her phone, probably to send a snarky text to Greg. Maybe something like, guess he couldn't handle it after all, face with rolling eyes. But she didn't get the chance to send it. Because that's when the doorbell rang. 3 sharp chimes. Too fast to be casual. Too urgent to ignore. She rolled her eyes again, muttering something like, God, what now? And walked barefoot to the front door. Opened it with that same half-bored expression she wore when she wanted to make someone feel small. Only this time, it wasn't a neighbor, or a delivery guy, or Greg trying to be cute. It was her trust lawyer, Marcus. And Marcus was running. He was panting, suit jacket open, shirt damp at the collar. His tie was crooked. He looked like he'd sprinted from his car, maybe even left it running. He had a red folder clutched in his left hand, like it was a ticking bomb. Ma'am. He gasped, not even waiting to be invited in. Please tell me he didn't resign. She blinked. What? He pushed past her, breath catching in his throat. Tell me. Tell me. You didn't let him resign without a counter. She started, confused, thrown. He just left a note. Something about being done. What is that even? God. Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose, swearing under his breath. Then he slapped the folder down on the foyer table and opened it like he was disarming a grenade. She stepped closer. Marcus, what is this? He didn't answer right away, just stared at the open page, then looked up at her with something she'd never seen in his eyes before, fear. You do understand what you've done, right? He said, voice suddenly quiet. Controlled. I told him to report to Greg. He got dramatic and left. So what? He'll cool off. Marcus shook his head. No. You don't get it. This isn't about your office drama. This is about the trust. The one your father established before your marriage. The discretionary marital trust. He was the active trustee. She frowned. He was just a co-signer. No, he was the trustee. She blinked again. But I have control. It's mine. Marcus flipped to the third page and pointed at a signature. Not if he resigns. His resignation triggers a full fiduciary reassessment and a default reversion clause. You never updated the paperwork after merging your firm into the trust protection structure. Which means, he stopped, seeing it land on her all at once. Which means every asset under that umbrella, every account, every property, every share she tucked away under joint designations for tax optimization, was now under review. Frozen. Suspended until a new trustee could be appointed by the board. A trustee who wasn't her. She stared down at the folder. The words swam in front of her. She clutched the edge of the table. Outside, the espresso machine sputtered once, then stopped. Greg texted her, meeting in 10. Can you bring the strategy notes? She didn't reply. She stood in the kitchen, one hand gripping the edge of the marble counter like she needed it to stay upright, the other clutching the red folder Marcus had just shoved into her hands. Her coffee had gone cold. The steam was gone, like someone had vacuumed all the warmth out of the room. She flipped open the folder. The pages rustled too loudly in the silence, and for a moment, the neat lines of legal text meant nothing. Just black squiggles dancing on thick white paper. Then Marcus stepped closer, reaching over her shoulder to stab a trembling finger at the third page. There, he said. His voice wasn't angry. It was scared. There was a clause, from before you were married. From when your father first set up the trust. She squinted. What clause? The backdoor clause, he said, almost whispering it. Standard in most discretionary trusts, but in this case, it's different. He took a shaky breath. Your father, years ago, appointed him, Mark, as the discretionary trustee over the assets in the marital umbrella. At the time, it made sense. You were still dating, your business wasn't formalized yet, and your father didn't want it tied up in your name in case the relationship didn't work out. She scowled. But we got married. That should have voided it. No, Marcus said, flipping to the appendix. That's the thing. You never submitted a formal amendment. You never updated it. When you merged your business accounts into the trust protection umbrella 2 years ago, he became the acting overseer of those holdings, by default. She swallowed. Her tongue felt like rubber. He was just a co-signer. Marcus turned and stared at her. He was the trustee. The words were ice water. She flinched. Her shoulders stiffened like someone had just snapped a wire inside her spine. That's not possible. Do you remember signing Form 1472E? What's that? It gave him discretionary authority over redistribution and reassessment if certain triggers occurred. One of those triggers, he said, voice rising now, was his resignation under contested circumstances. That wasn't contested. It was voluntary. He scoffed, almost laughed. Oh, right, voluntary. You publicly humiliated him, reassigned him beneath Greg, gave him an ultimatum in front of a witness, and then mocked him in your kitchen like it was a joke. It might have been voluntary on paper, but trust law is about intent and context, not PR spin. She went pale. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Marcus continued. His resignation didn't just trigger a review. It froze everything. The assets under his watch, including the business accounts you merged in for liability shielding. They're locked, pending reassessment. She backed away from the folder like it might bite her. I still have access to my account. I checked this morning. That was before the resignation was logged. It takes 24 hours to propagate. She pulled her phone from her pocket with fingers that didn't quite work. Opened the banking app. The login screen flashed. She pressed her thumb. Waited. Then she saw it. Access restricted. Trust verification pending. A strange sound came out of her mouth. Half gasp, half laugh. He planned this. He set me up. No, Marcus said softly. He protected himself. Silence. Just the sound of her breath quickening. The espresso machine humming its cleanup cycle. The fridge ticking from the compressor. Then, movement outside the kitchen window. Greg, walking up the path, waving cheerfully with 2 coffees in hand. He spotted her through the glass and gave her a wide, goofy grin, holding up the cardboard tray like a peace offering. She didn't wave back. She didn't even move. She just stared through him like he wasn't real. Marcus stepped between them, pulled the curtain closed. You need to make a call. To your father. She shook her head. He'll kill me. He might, Marcus said. But right now, he's the only person who can unfreeze the trust. And if he finds out from someone else, especially someone outside the family. She finally turned to him. What happens? He didn't answer right away. Just looked down at the folder. If your father deems your actions a breach of fiduciary responsibility, he could reassign the trust permanently, strip your access, cancel the legal protection your company relies on. Greg's the new supervisor, she said absently. Greg doesn't even know what a K-1 distribution is, Marcus snapped. And you've tied your entire professional identity to a corporate structure you don't control. Her hands dropped to her sides. She looked smaller suddenly, thinner, like someone had let the air out of her. She whispered. He didn't yell. He didn't even argue. Marcus nodded. He didn't have to. Her smirk was gone. So was her certainty. So was the illusion that she understood the game. She hadn't just pushed him out. She'd walked herself out. By Wednesday, the audit team had already set up shop on the 3rd floor. 2 glass-walled conference rooms turned into temporary war rooms. Whiteboards, laptops, printouts, legal pads, and quiet, very quiet conversations behind closed doors. The kind of quiet that smells like liability. It started with a single email. From corporate compliance. Subject line, Trust Oversight Protocol, Phase 1. She read it 3 times, hoping it meant something else. It didn't. The trust's change in control had triggered a full review of all connected assets and professional relationships. And because she had stupidly merged her boutique consultancy under the protective umbrella of that same trust last year, for efficiency and tax shielding, she'd said, her business was now fair game. Every invoice, every client contract, every internal promotion, every email. All of it was under scrutiny. At first, she tried to downplay it. This is a routine legal check, she told her assistant, lips tight. It's just paperwork. But the panic had already started curling its fingers around her spine. She didn't even realize how bad it was until HR pinged her for a time-sensitive clarification meeting. No subject line, no agenda, just a calendar invite and a digital waiver attached. She showed up 15 minutes early in a blazer she hadn't worn since Q for last year. Her hands wouldn't stop fussing with the cuffs. Inside, she found not just the HR manager, but someone from legal she'd only met once during onboarding. They asked her to sit, offered water, declined when she asked what this was about. Then they rolled in the tape. Security footage, March conference, corporate retreat in Tahoe. She and Greg, after the closing panel, champagne in hand, Greg leaning in, her brushing something from his cheek, or pretending to, her fingers lingering just a little too long. She remembered the moment, barely, but on screen, it looked intimate, inappropriate, obvious. She cleared her throat. Greg had something on his face. The legal advisor didn't blink. That may be, but taken in context with your comment during the client dinner. What comment? He pulled out a printed transcript. Her voice, clear as day. Greg? He's basically my work husband. Laughter followed. Then Greg's response. And I'm the lucky one. Said in front of a client. A high-value one. A conservative one. She reached for a pen, missed the edge, and had to fumble to catch it. You do realize, the HR rep said gently, that given your position as founder and CEO and Greg's recent promotion, the optics of an undisclosed relationship present a significant compliance risk. We aren't, in a relationship, she snapped. That's just office banter. The legal rep raised an eyebrow. In the current environment, that defense doesn't hold much weight, especially not when it's on record. Especially not when the trust now oversees 78% of your equity, which, as of 2 days ago, is under reassessment. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She felt the walls closing in, not metaphorically, literally. The glass walls of the conference room suddenly felt like a fishbowl, like everyone in the hallway was watching her get dissected. She pushed back in her chair. This is insane. You're treating me like an intern who broke protocol. No, the legal advisor said. We're treating you like a high-risk officer during a pending audit. When she finally stumbled out of the room, Greg was waiting by the elevators, sipping his smoothie like a frat boy on spring break. Hey, he said, smiling too wide. Heard you had a little chat with HR. Everything good? She looked at him like he was fungus. They're reviewing the conference footage. He laughed. Actually laughed. That little cheek thing? Come on. That's nothing. You're golden. Worst case, you get a slap on the wrist. Maybe some DI training. She didn't respond. Just watched as he slurped the last of his mango spinach mess and tossed the cup in a recycling bin without looking. He winked. Relax. I got your back. She wanted to strangle him. Instead, she walked straight to her office, shut the door, and collapsed into her chair. The inbox was already filling with follow-up questions from legal. Questions about hiring dates, favoritism, gift exchanges, travel reimbursements, all phrased politely, but loaded like a shotgun. And then, just to twist the knife, a calendar update came through. From her own assistant. Subject: Interim Oversight Rotation, Greg Halpern, Acting Director. Her title was still there, but now it came with an asterisk. She clicked the window closed. Her hand trembled slightly. Outside, in the hallway, she could hear Greg laughing with someone from IT, probably telling a story that made him look harmless. She stared at her screen, at the calendar, at the mountain of unraveling control. Her job wasn't hers anymore. It was officially under review. The sun was already down when the call came. She was sitting in the corner of her oversized sectional, curled up like a teenager after a breakup, TV flickering useless images in the background. The espresso from earlier had gone untouched. Her blazer was still on, hair still done, but her face? Her face was something else now. No more gloss, no smugness, just this pale, glassy-eyed stare like she'd just been dropped off in a foreign city with no map and no phone. Her phone rang once, twice. She glanced at it. The contact name said, Dad, in all caps, from a time when he was more title than person. She hesitated, hoping the voicemail would catch it, but it didn't. She answered. His voice didn't start loud. That was the worst part. It was cold, precise. Why didn't you inform me he resigned? Her breath caught. I was going to call. It just happened so fast, and I didn't think. You didn't think, he repeated, as if tasting the words. You didn't think to call the man who built the trust you're standing on? She sat up straighter. Dad, I didn't know he would resign. I just told him to report to Greg. It was a simple restructure. Don't, he snapped. Don't insult both of us. You told him to report to Greg, a man who couldn't manage a coffee order, let alone a department. You humiliated the trustee of a multi-million-dollar asset structure over ego. Do you even understand what you've done? She clenched her jaw. He was being petty. He was acting like I owed him something just for showing up every day. You kicked out the trustee. Her father thundered so loudly she flinched. The one person I trusted not to burn everything down when you got emotional. He was supposed to balance you. Her eyes darted to the screen of her laptop, still open on the coffee table. Her banking portal was frozen mid-refresh. She'd been trying to get in for an hour. It kept spinning, waiting. Then, error 403, access blocked, authorization pending. She licked her lips. It's not gone, right? It's just paused until legal reviews it. No, her father said. It's locked until the board reassigns a new trustee, which, thanks to you, now has to go through an emergency session. You think that happens overnight? She didn't respond. She was staring at the screen like it had personally betrayed her. He continued, slower now, lower, more dangerous. You turned a stable structure into a fire drill, and you never consulted me. Not once. You made this bed, sweetheart. Sleep in it. She tried to breathe. Her fingers dug into the couch cushions. I can fix this. I can talk to him. Maybe if I explained. He laughed. Dry, like gravel. You think this is fixable? That man knew what he was doing the second you opened your mouth. You didn't just lose the trust. You lost your credibility. Tears threatened, but she held them back. Barely. So what now? Now, he said. Now, you get nothing until this is resolved. Not a dollar. Not a signature. Not a favor. She opened her mouth, but the call ended. Just like that. No goodbye. No I love you. Just silence. She stared at the black screen of her phone. Her reflection looked like someone else, someone softer. Smaller. Then came the buzz. Another notification. Internal. Work email. Subject, suspension pending inquiry, executive conduct review. Her heart thudded once, then dropped like a stone. She tapped it open. One line. Per the recommendation of corporate legal, Your access to internal systems and communications has been temporarily suspended pending a formal inquiry into conduct violations and fiduciary oversight breaches. No, please. No, pending your input. Just, you're out. She leaned forward, elbows on knees, phone dangling from her fingers. The room was so quiet, she could hear the fridge's compressor click off in the kitchen. The walls, the windows, the lights, all of it still looked like her house. But nothing in it felt hers anymore. She was suspended, cut off, isolated, the queen of a castle whose gates were now locked from the outside. And nobody was answering the door. She pulled into the driveway just after 7 p.m., gravel spitting under the tires of her leased Jaguar, nerves frayed like electrical wire. The Bluetooth call with her crisis PR rep had ended in vague promises and nothing useful. Let it breathe. We'll draft a statement, they'd said. As if a press release could unfreeze accounts, undo board meetings, or repair her father's silence. She just wanted to get inside, change clothes, scream into a pillow, something, anything to make her feel like a person again. Only, when she climbed the front steps and reached for the handle, her own front door didn't open. It was locked. No, changed. The key didn't even slide in. She tried again, jammed it, twisted, nothing. She stood there for a full 30 seconds, blinking like she was in a dream. This couldn't be happening. Not this. Not her house. Not the stone facade she had picked from a catalog. Not the doorbell chime she'd customized with that stupid classical jingle. Not the one place that was still supposed to be hers. She pulled out her phone and called the locksmith she used for the office. When she explained what was happening, his voice dropped immediately. Wait, what's the address again? She repeated it. Another pause. I can't help you. Excuse me. I mean legally. The ownership on that property changed. Deed was transferred to a trust about 2 months ago. I actually saw it come through on the system. Crazy coincidence. The trustee was your husband. But, he hesitated, like he didn't want to say the next part. But what? But after his resignation, property reverts to the original grantor until the trust names a new one. That grantor is your father. She stopped breathing. I just got off the phone with him earlier today. The locksmith continued, oblivious. He hired a crew to change the locks and do a top-to-bottom clean-out. She hung up before she could scream at a stranger. Then, as if on cue, the garage door creaked open. Her stomach turned. She walked toward it like someone approaching a crime scene. Inside, under the cold fluorescent bulbs, were boxes. Dozens of them. Labeled. Sorted. Bedroom. A. Kitchen. Glassware. Closet. Shoes. Even her makeup drawer had been cataloged and packed. A single folded note lay on one of the boxes. It wasn't from her father. Or from Mark. It was from the cleaning crew manager. Her instructions from owner, all personal effects packed and undamaged. Photos left intact unless explicit removal requested. She stepped forward and saw it, right on top of the biggest box. The silver frame, the one from her desk. Her and Greg, smiling, arms around each other at the conference in Tahoe. She'd propped it up at the office weeks ago, thinking it made her look relatable. As if casual emotional entanglement with her subordinate was some kind of leadership aesthetic. Now it stared back at her like evidence in a deposition. She ripped it off the box, pulled the photo out, crumpled it into her fist. The glass cracked as she did, the frame slicing her thumb. She didn't notice. The lights inside the house flickered on. She turned, thinking maybe, just maybe, someone was there. That they'd see her, recognize the mistake, invite her back in. Her father? Her assistant? Mark, having a moment of pity? But no one was inside. It was just the automatic system resetting after the cleaning crew left. The lights didn't mean welcome. They meant vacancy. She stood there, hand bleeding, chest heaving. She could scream. She wanted to. But the street was quiet. The neighbors were probably watching from behind their blinds, wondering what drama the woman with the power suits and smug smile had walked into now. For the first time in weeks, Greg didn't answer her texts. She was locked out of her house. Not because of a fight. Not because of theft. But because it had never really been hers. It belonged to a trust. A trust managed by her husband. And now? Returned to her father, who didn't even bother calling to explain. She wanted to kick something. To throw the box across the garage. But instead, she sank down onto the cold concrete floor and stared at the door she could no longer open. She had burned the bridge she never built. And now all she had left was a pile of labeled boxes, and a picture she couldn't stand to look at. The garage still smelled like cardboard and lemon cleaner. She hadn't moved in 20 minutes, just sat there on the concrete, knees pulled up, staring at the dented side of a moving box labeled office. Personal. The label was smudged now, blood from her cut thumb. Fitting. She'd tried texting Greg again. Nothing. Just the usual read receipt. No reply. Not even a thumbs-up emoji. That silence. It started feeling heavier than any of the losses. He was supposed to be with her in this. He was part of it. The giggling in meetings, the conference banter, the cheek stroke that made HR hit the panic button. He knew what they were, what they weren't. And now he was quiet. Now that it mattered. The house was still technically empty. But her father had left the landline connected, for security system purposes, maybe, or just because he hadn't bothered to cancel it yet. She stepped over the last few stacked boxes and walked through the laundry door, back into the main house. Everything looked cleaner than she remembered, like someone had wiped the place of her fingerprints. The hallway smelled like pine. Her favorite throw blanket was missing from the couch. The couch itself had been vacuumed. She sank into it, defeated. Then the phone rang. The landline. Not her cell. That awkward double-ring sound that made her stomach clench. She picked it up, but didn't speak. Just pressed the receiver to her ear. Silence on the line for a second. Then, Marcus's voice. Her lawyer. Look, I'm just trying to contain what's left of this disaster, he said. But we're past the optics stage now. She's suspended, the assets are frozen, and HR's recommending full termination. Then another voice. Greg. It was just a joke, he said. Come on, you're seriously telling me this is all because of that? Marcus laughed, sharp, humorless. Greg, if you'd kept your mouth shut and your hands to yourself, she'd still have the trust, the job, and the house. I didn't mean anything by it, Greg said, his voice more defensive now. She flirted first. She called me her work husband. Marcus didn't answer for a beat. Then, she called you that in front of a client, on a recorded call. Then you let her brush your cheek on camera at a corporate retreat. You joked about it in the break room on mic. That's not flirting. That's liability. Greg huffed. You're acting like she's innocent. No, Marcus said. I'm saying you were supposed to be smart. She tied her business to a legal structure she didn't understand, made emotional decisions in a boardroom, and married someone 10 times more strategic than either of you put together. You just happened to be the gasoline on her fire. There was a long pause. Then Marcus added, lower. It cost her everything. That's when she slammed the phone down. The sharp crack echoed through the empty living room. She stood, shoulders trembling, heart pounding in her chest like it was trying to punch its way out. The betrayal stung, but not because of the words. Not even because of Greg's cowardice. It was the truth in Marcus's voice. Cold, measured, unapologetic. She hadn't just fallen. She'd been watched fall, and no one had reached for her hand. Outside, she saw motion through the half-drawn blinds. Movers. Her ex-husband, in a black polo and worn jeans, was calmly directing them. Box after box, leaving. He wasn't sweating, wasn't flustered, just checking labels, pointing toward the van, moving with quiet efficiency. Like this was just another Tuesday. Like she was invisible. He didn't even look at the house. She opened the front door, gripping the frame like a lifeline. He glanced up once, gave her the barest nod. Not smug, not cruel, just done, and went back to taping the last box shut. She wanted to scream. To yell at the movers, at the sky, at Greg for his cowardice, at Marcus for his judgment, at Mark for being right. But no one was listening. She had gone from boss to ghost, from queen to witness. She stepped back inside, door still open, and sat down on the floor. This time, she didn't cry. She just listened to the sound of boxes being loaded into a truck she didn't own, by a man who no longer wore a ring, carrying away a life she'd miscalculated. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quiet, awful, and final. The conference room was already full when she arrived, though her name wasn't on the calendar invite. No email. No heads up. No, we'd love your input. Or, please prepare a statement. Just silence. And a full parking lot outside the building at 7:42 a.m. on a Thursday. She knew something was happening when she saw her father's car, chauffeur idling at the curb, blacked-out Mercedes purring like a threat. He only came in person when it was surgical, swift, brutal. Security didn't stop her at the elevator, but they did escort her once she stepped onto the executive floor. Not to the boardroom, of course. To the small observation suite, glass wall, soundproof, designed for legal review during sensitive hearings. She wasn't told to sit, but she did anyway, because what else was left? Behind the glass, the board was already seated. Her father at the head, flanked by the family's legal advisor and the estate's compliance officer. Across from them, the trust's external accountant. Mark's accountant. Quiet man. Always wore a maroon tie and smelled like paper. She pressed her hand to the glass as if it could somehow get her closer to the table. It didn't. The first words she saw, though she couldn't hear them, were unmistakable. The compliance officer held up a document, her photo on it. The one from the company retreat. Greg's face barely visible in the corner. That cursed moment frozen in pixels. The PR advisor leaned forward, visibly tense. His lips moved slowly, carefully. She could read enough of them to understand the gist. To preserve brand integrity, we recommend a clean separation before public filings. She felt her heart start to pound again, just like it did the day the audit notice hit, just like it had when the locks wouldn't turn. The body always knows before the mind accepts it. Her father didn't look her way, not once. He just nodded after each person spoke, wrote something in his leather-bound notebook, flipped pages, adjusted his cufflinks. The vote was brief. Hands raised. Unanimous. The compliance officer slid a new packet of documents across the table. Her father's voice was clearer now. He'd stood, pacing, walking into a better sight line. She couldn't hear the words, but she knew the cadence. The announcement of a new trustee. The man seated at the far end, Mark's accountant, stood and gave a brief, reserved nod. She didn't cry. Couldn't. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was a hollowing. Her name was being stripped off the masthead. Her signature scrubbed from the firm's registration filings. Every ounce of identity she had built, repackaged and reassigned to someone who didn't even need to speak during the meeting. Someone who had just been there, quietly, loyally, and strategically. Greg's chair remained empty. He hadn't shown. No message. No statement. Just gone. Later, she'd learned he was already interviewing at another firm, smaller, further from the spotlight. His LinkedIn had been updated that morning. Open to work. Coward. When the meeting ended, the board members filed out with polite, firm nods. A few glanced toward the glass. Most didn't. Her father paused, looked straight at her. Not long, not warmly, just a glance to confirm she was still watching. Then he turned and walked away. No invitation to lunch. No debrief. No, we'll talk later. Just confirmation that she had been seen. 10 minutes later, HR delivered the envelope. Heavy, cream-colored, formal. Inside, a signed resignation letter. Not from her. From the PR team. They would handle the messaging. Mutual parting of ways. Pursuing new opportunities. Grateful for years of service. She was told to clear out her desk by Friday. 2 decades. Gone in 4 pages. No more firm. No more trust. No more house. No more title. She walked down the hallway alone, shoulders stiff, face blank. Past coworkers who suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Past an intern who stood just a little too fast when she passed. Past the framed hallway portrait of founders and visionaries, her photo already missing. And when she stepped outside, the wind caught her blouse, tugging it like a child trying to get her attention. She looked up once. The office lights blinked off behind her. Her badge didn't work anymore. The light in the kitchen was gray. Not morning light, pre-morning. That strange, washed-out hue that makes even familiar spaces feel foreign. The power hadn't been cut, but the fridge made a different sound now, louder somehow, like it knew the house was empty. She hadn't slept. Not really. She'd spent the night on the floor of the guest room in her sister's condo, surrounded by unopened boxes marked with her name, but packed by someone else's hands. Her phone battery was dead. Her voice, too. No one had called. Not Greg. Not HR. Not her father. Not even the family lawyer. She came back to the house one last time that morning, because she had nowhere else to go. Not really. The condo felt like purgatory. This was hell. She stood barefoot on the cold tile, arms wrapped around herself, still wearing the wrinkled blazer from the board meeting, mascara smudged like war paint. Then she saw it. An envelope, taped to the fridge. Just a plain white envelope. No name. No return address. Just her ex-husband's handwriting on the front. Final statement. Her hand hovered over it for a moment. Like touching it might trigger a final detonation. She peeled it from the metal and opened it with a shaking finger. Inside, 2 sheets of paper. The first, handwritten. His handwriting. Familiar. Unmistakable. Sometimes, respect isn't asked for. It's quietly reclaimed. That was it. No salutation. No signature. Just that. She read it twice. Then 3 times. Then her jaw clenched so tight her teeth hurt. She crumpled the paper violently in her fist and screamed. A loud, ragged, animal sound that bounced off the steel appliances and echoed through the cavernous, echoey kitchen she no longer owned. She slammed the paper to the ground, kicked it, picked it up just to shred it. But her hand stopped. Because of the second page. This one wasn't handwritten. It was a printed transfer confirmation from the estate's bank. Official. Signed. Dated. Transfer amount. 216,000 US dollars. Beneficiary. The Eli R. Warfield Foundation Veterans Rehabilitation Fund. Memo. Final commission disbursement. Marital trust withdrawal. She read it again. And again. At the bottom, another note. Typed. For the man who taught me what dignity looks like. Her knees buckled. No one pushed her. No one raised a hand. But something inside collapsed. She fell forward onto the cold floor, palms smacking the tile. Her breath came out in short, dry gasps. She wasn't crying. Not yet. Just trying to breathe. Trying to make sense of it. He didn't keep the money. He didn't leave a vengeful message. No gloating. No, I told you so. Not even a request for recognition. He just left the final commission, the very last thread connecting him to the trust, to her, in the name of the one man who had already disowned her. To her father. To his charity. She reached for the counter, but her hand slid off. Her cheek hit the floor, and only then did the tears come. Not in waves. In convulsions. Ugly, choking sobs that scraped her throat raw. He didn't ruin her. She ruined herself. She'd mocked him. Humiliated him. Dismissed him like he was disposable. And he responded with silence. Precision. And a kind of grace that no one watching would ever forget. He didn't raise his voice. He raised the standard. And she was left with nothing. Not the house. Not the job. Not the man. Not even the war. Just an empty kitchen. A crumpled note. And a message she would never, ever be able to rewrite.